Hi, I'm LJ and I work in the UCSF School of Medicine, where we're currently going through a significant change in our curriculum. Personally, I find change very difficult and I worry. So I would like to share an example of something I use in times of transition. Hopefully it makes everyone feel better about changes. I was looking at a graphic from William Bridges' book, Managing Transitions. This graphic is an illustration of the process of change. When moving from the old to the new, there's a big area he calls the neutral zone, or transition. Well, it reminded me of something. Does anyone recognize this place? How about now? There's something big missing from this picture. Right in the neutral zone. It's so much a part of our present day that a lot of us don't even recognize this place without it. What's missing here is a bridge. And I thought, hey, if I'm looking for an example of how to manage a really big transition, why not look at this one? It was a project that seemed impossible. Some people even called it a madman's dream. In hindsight, the Golden Gate Bridge is considered a triumph of elegance, design, big dreams, and hard work. But what about its transitional period? Was it so clearly going to be a success when it was being built? Was the vision always this clear? Let's look at a few things about the Golden Gate Bridge in transition. There were many thoughts and ideas about the bridge that didn't make it into the final design. The original concept was a cantilever suspension combination bridge. Not particularly pretty, is it? And there was this ornate tunnel approach that exists only on paper. Or my favorite, this grandiose plaza with a fountain and what looks like the Acropolis in the background. The idea of building a bridge, though it had been discussed since the late 1800s, was met by many people with fear, opposition, and doubt. Ansel Adams, a San Francisco native, took this photograph on the eve of the bridge's construction, pointing out in his image the beauty of the empty gate, but also framing his fears about the change to come. In 1933, when construction began, the Great Depression had hit, and the federal government could not help with funding. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors opposed the bridge because they did not think the taxpayers should shoulder the debt. The Sierra Club was worried about environmental damage. Local shippers felt that construction would disrupt their business, and Southern Pacific, which owned Golden Gate Ferries, thought the bridge would steal their customers. Even the U.S. War Department, the owner of the land on both shores of the gate, expressed resistance on the grounds that construction would disrupt military operations, or that after the bridge was built, it would be blown up by our enemies. Maybe most concerning of all, no one had ever built a suspension bridge of this size, and many engineers believed it could not be done. Despite these obstacles, in 1933, construction began. The Marin Tower went up first, followed by the San Francisco Tower, which required the help of divers who descended to a depth of 90 feet, this was before scuba tanks, to plant black powder bombs to prepare the bedrock for the South Tower. Every day, divers battled the rough weather conditions, feeling their way because they could not see in the murky water. Then there was the cable problem. There are two main suspension cables that hold the bridge together. Each of these cables would weigh 12 tons, or 24,000 pounds. That's a hard number to grasp, so I did some math. That's the weight of 3,000 African elephants. Those cables needed to be hung over the span, but no barge could have floated them, and no equipment could have lifted them onto the supports. The solution? The cables were created on the structure, high in the air, by stringing individual cables about the width of a pencil. This pencil-thin cable was spun back and forth 27,572 times, bundled, and compacted into one large cable. Maybe the most challenging aspect of this project comes from the nature of how a suspension bridge is built. In order to keep the forces on the towers balanced at all times, It must be built outwards in both directions from the support towers at the correct rate. There was a moment during the building of the bridge when it looked like things might not come together. This is a little like trying to keep your workload going while also trying to adapt to a transition. The final color that the bridge is known for, and really makes it the landmark it is, was an accident. The steel that arrived in San Francisco from Pennsylvania to build the Golden Gate Bridge was coated in a reddish-orange shade of primer to protect it from corrosive elements. The bridge builders liked it so much, they lobbied to keep it. International orange is now its permanent iconic color. There had been other suggestions, however, like this striped version suggested by the military. But the heart of transition is often felt most in the day-to-day experience. On the bridge, the shifts were long. Anyone could be thrown together on a team and needed to be able to depend on one another. In this case, when working 220 feet above the ocean, for their lives. The work could also be lonely and precarious and very complicated. And there was the work inside the work, temporary structures that had to be built and torn down. They were essential to the transition, but would never be part of the final picture. It can be hard to see the progress when you are in the middle of the transition. So in looking at this example, I discovered that even this iconic structure had its process of transition. And in a way, it's a better metaphor than any I could have deliberately chosen, because it's a bridge. A bridge is not a destination. When you are building it, and even when it's completed and you're on it, you are neither here nor there. You are in transition. And what we are building is not in itself the destination. It's a structure that supports the transition from where we were to what we want to be on the other side.